Let's go. Here we go. It's your boy Chadsky. This is going to be a fun video. This is going to be a very comprehensive video. We are going to go through the 2025. Okay, we're early in 2025. And we're going to go through all these murder ball matchups and all these murder ball pairings. We're going to do this for you. And this is an extremely comprehensive video. So I'll have chapters in the video to kind of give you 5 marches, 6 marches, 7 marches, going through different sets, different types of setups as far as what kind of player you are. And we will do all that. If you enjoy the channel, throw a like on here. If you enjoy the video, throw a like. If you enjoy the channel, subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Guys, we haven't even done this for like 3 months, like 2.5 months, and we're at 10,000 subscribers. We got a crazy tournament thing we got going on to do a murder ball tournament. And in lieu of all that, I'm putting together your 5, 6, and 7 March in-game murder ball. Okay. And so with that, we are going to go through all the pairings. We're going to figure out what works. We're going to figure out how all this stuff is applicable to your account and how you can run it. Okay. If you're a 5 March murder ball guy, but you run 3 calves, I'll have it for you. If you're a 6 March murder ball guy and you run 3 archers, I got it for you. Okay. So let's do that and let's get right into it, shall we? First of all, the idea of the murder ball, guys, and your own particular murder ball, whether you're running 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 marches, I have done these kind of guides for if you're running just 3 or 4 or even 5. But now I'm going to do it brand new, updated for 2025. Commanders we've just gotten a bunch of them, and we are going to put this thing together, okay? You can kind of see how I set up some of my murder balls in your presets and how you do different things. I've got some art stuff going on here. I've got some other stuff going on here. But more importantly, regardless of what kind of player you are, there are different attributes and different things that commanders do well together. For instance, okay, you've got Belisarius. All right, he's got a 12% all damage. If the target you're hitting, by the way, you're always hitting one target. I've never seen anybody run a murder ball with 6 marches and 2 marches are hitting a target over here and 4 are hitting it over here. You're always hitting the same thing. And so it makes debuffs like this for the target really, really powerful. And those of you guys who are all William lovers, same thing with you guys, okay? When you do this debuff with the defense and you have all the different things that William does, I go through all of that, okay? And so we're also going to talk a little bit about, when I put up these charts on what you should run, we're also going to talk about easy substitutions with each one of them. So we're going to go through a 5 March murder ball, we're going to go through a 6 March murder ball, and we're going to go through a 7 March murder ball and give you all kinds of different combinations and stuff. So let's jump right into it, shall we? We're going to first of all go 5 March murder ball. This is really common, okay? I'm going to give you different options here, but it's a 2 cav, 2 infantry, 1 archer murder ball. This is really simple. This is option 1, okay? Huo Arthur, you're going to see kind of as a staple on all these lists, okay? It's just way too powerful. It does way too many things, all right? And so that's kind of, this is my setup. If I'm running and I have unlimited everything and I'm running a 5 March murder ball with 2 cavalries, 2 infantries, and an archer, I'm going Huo Arthur. I'm going Joan Belly. Now, a lot of people will go Nevsky Joan, which is fine. But for me, in this particular setup, I love Belisarius. I love what he does. And if Nevsky isn't running with an Arthur, he's kind of losing a little bit of his benefit. Okay, and so Nevsky's still great. Don't get me wrong. You can easily replace Belisarius with Nevsky and run him in there. And then I also run Luce with Philip. I think in this particular setup, even though Wallace Luce I think is kind of the best you can do with a Luce pairing, I like this setup because Philip does so many things, obviously, for your murder ball. He does so many things on the buffing side of things, and this particular March trades exceptionally well. Ragnar CPO is busted good. It is busted good. The developers did a great job giving us a commander like Ragnar that's going to continue the skill damage aspect of infantry, which is great because Guan was getting old, y'all. And then, of course, Zuge Herman, the best archer March you can run is Zuge Herman. So that's kind of one setup. So I've got this as one option. Okay, and so when you think about this, let's go to a second option if you're going to mix and match and do some things with the same 2 cavs, 2 infantry, 1 archer setup. Option number 2, I'm going to run the Huo Arthur, which is great. I'm going to bring Nevsky in, and you can easily replace the belly with Nevsky and run Nevsky Joan. Then what I'd like to do is move around my Philip. Okay, so you're going to see a Wallace Luce and a Ragnar CPO. Those are the two best infantry marches you can run, hands down. And it allows me to move my Philip behind Zuge. We see crazy stuff coming with Philip behind Zuge. And the reason why that's really, really good, so everybody understands, is that Philip on his skills, Philip has a particular set of skills that are really, really good in the sense that when he runs mono troop type, he can really give some attributes to whichever troop he has. That's why cavalry is there's some niche things he can do with cavalry if you put him as a cavalry commander, but for infantry he gives 35% defense. If he runs with archer like I had in that diagram, he gives 35% health. Okay, and you always get 20% march speed. So he gives Zuge exactly what he wants and needs, and that's why I think it's really, really important to try to run Philip with infantry or archers. However, there's some things that he does with cavalry that we'll talk about here in just a little bit, okay? And so, if you're going to change it up a little bit, let's say you're going one infantry march with 2 cavs and 2 archers, this is how I would run it. Okay, I think Ragnar Luce is the strongest infantry march together that you can get, depending on what is your best armament. If you have the best wedge set for infantry, then you run Ragnar primary. If you have the best arch set for infantry, you can still run Ragnar primary. But the reason why I like Ragnar primary is because of that skill he has to give skill damage bonus when you're over 70% rage. He gives it for 4 seconds. So you're going to lose it if you put him secondary. So that skill is kind of negated. And it's not a massive skill, but it's just good enough. So Ragnar Luce is really, really powerful and really, really good. Of course, Huo Arthur, I love. Joan Belly, which is kind of my go-to there on your second cav march. Again, you can also put in Nevsky and run Nevsky Joan. And then I pull in Herman, and I run Herman with Zuge, and then I put Philip behind Ash. Archer players will tell you, Philip behind Ash is the second best archer march. And something that also needs to be noticed and credited is the fact that if you have leadership equipment, you can run this with archers and just run Ash behind Philip. And that's essentially a second archer march. So you're not going to see a leadership march in here. Basically, anytime I put Philip behind somebody, if you have leadership gear for Philip, you can easily put him primary, because Philip is going to give that 40% all damage boost to whatever's hitting behind him. So you always want that to fire off in that order. But he still does it really, really well when he does his double cast. And so that's kind of how you set this thing up if you run 2 cavs, 1 infantry, and 2 archers. Okay, we'll go with option 2 of that same setup. Okay, I just basically switch Philip and Herman. I think Ash Herman is a great march speed, has a lot of things that you want it to do. Zuge Philip I think is super strong, and then I kind of do some mix and matching and different things to give you some different options. Okay, Nevsky Joan I love, you can put that in there if you don't want to run the Joan Belly. And then Luce Alex, like if you don't have William Wallace or you don't have Ragnar, you can run Luce Alex, still one of the best trading marches there is and does so much debuffing on targets. Luce Alex still absolutely wonderful. Okay, so let's go with a 1 cavalry setup, and that's just going to be a Huo Arthur. That's the best cavalry you can do, and it's the best cavalry you can run. So from there, I run the 2 really, really strong infantry marches, 1 arch formation march, 1 wedge formation march with your infantry, and then I stick with that same 2 archer combination there. So I'm giving you different options when it comes to that. Let's look at the second option we have for this. If you want to run Philip with Luce, okay, then all of a sudden you can bring YSG out. Now, there's some things that you can do with YSG. This Herman YSG is a second march, isn't necessarily the greatest. You can easily put Nebu in there. You can bring Shajar off the bench, and you can run Shajar with Ash, which I will show you, and then put Herman behind Zuge. These are just different ideas of how you can do this. You can mix and match your archers however you want, because after you have Herman, Zuge, and Ash, there's a real big drop-off. So if you're not going to run Philip with those three commanders, then you're stuck with kind of a Shajar situation or something like that, okay? So from there, we're going to go into now the 6 march setup. Okay, so if you're in KVK and you're able to run 6 marches, a lot of players will argue when you can do that and how you can do that, and I think it just kind of all depends. If you're a rally garrison, if you're trying to get 6 marches for the field in zone 5, you can't do both. You can't run up your all damage tech in zone 5 and have a 6 march. It's really, really hard to do. So there's all kinds of different ways to kind of look at this. But what everybody has to understand is that every player, regardless if you've run 7 marches, you run 5 at one point, you run 6 at one point, and you run 7 at one point. Okay, and so this is a very good application for everybody. So let's get into the 6 march setup. The first one, real easy: 2 cavs, 2 infantry, 2 archers. Okay, I think this is the best you can get from all 3 troop types. I think this is the best you can do. You can move around Zuge with Philip, and then you can put Ash with Herman as well. So there's a couple of different things that you can do with that on the archers, but essentially those are the 4 archer marches or archer commanders you want to run. You want to turn Philip into an archer commander. That's what you want to run. Of course, Wallace and Luce is amazing. Ragnar Scipio is amazing. I love the belly with Joan, and then I run Huo with Arthur. So we go to the second option of this, okay? And this is interesting because now I'm going to put in Nevsky. So that's a combination you can switch out, and then at the same time I'm going to pull Philip over with Luce. Maybe you don't have William Wallace, and Philip behind Luce is a better combination and does more for your murder ball than Alex. So Luce, Philip there, then you stick with Ragnar Scipio, and then you kind of switch this up. Now, again, I'm bringing in YSG, but you could easily go Shajar Ash, or you could go Ash Nebu with Herman behind Zuge. You can do anything that you want with those archers, but now you're kind of dipping into some really old commanders if you're going to move Philip to the infantry and you're going to bring a 4th archer commander, okay? So that kind of gives you a second option with a 2-2-2 format. All right, so now we're going to run 3 cavs, 2 infantry, 1 archer. A lot of players run this, okay? And now you get the benefit of having the cavalry do what it really does well, and that is having really strong marches that you could run for 3 different marches of cavalry. Okay, who will Arthur stick with that? Joan Belly, great. Nevsky William. Nevsky William is still fantastic in the field. William provides so many different things for your marches and buffs your defense, does all kinds of different things in a murder ball setting, and he's still really, really good to today. But I definitely am always going to have Nevsky more of a priority in a 2-march setup than William, and definitely have Belly as more of a priority in a 2-march setup compared to William. Okay, so from there, this is kind of a Ragnar Scipio with Luce Philip. Okay, and then having Zuge with Herman. That's kind of my 3-2-1 combination. So we can go into a kind of a second option for that. Okay, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting. I told you that Philip, we don't like to run him as calves unless it's a niche situation. Arthur primary turns him into a combo commander. Okay, so he's doing a ton of combo attacks. Active skill is a combo attack. And then he's also getting extra procs with Philip behind him. This is a great, great march. And that's the only time I would put Philip over with the cavalry, because you're not getting the benefit of health like you do for archers or defense like you do for infantry. You get attack for cavalry, but it doesn't matter because Arthur Philip is a rapid fire, proc your equipment, proc your tier levels on awakening and equipment, proc all your skills, proc all your talents. This is what that march does, and it does it insanely. You're going to proc drums more, you're going to proc horn more, you're going to proc Undying Fury from the talent tree more on an Arthur Phillips situation. And then I move Huo with Joan. I think Huo Joan, if you don't have Arthur, I think that's the best cavalry march you could run. So I love Huo with Joan, and then I put Belly behind Nevsky. That's kind of my 3 cavalry situation that you can run, and it works out really, really well in a kind of a 3-2-1 format on the second option here. And then this also allows me to run Ragnar with Scipio, Wallace with Luce, great, and then Zuge Herman. That's all great. Those are all 3 meta marches, and that's an easy setup. Okay, let's go to the next 6-march setup. This is going to be a 2 cavalry, 3 infantry, 1 archer. Okay, the 2 cavalry, I bring Arthur back as a secondary to Huo. I bring back the Joan Belly. Again, you could run Nevsky with Joan, or you can run Nevsky with or you can run Joan with William. You can do whatever you want there, but I prefer the Joan with Belly. Then, okay, I put Philip behind Ragnar. I ran this on my alt account. It is insanely good. Ragnar with Philip is so good, and this is what I literally run on my alt account when I run 6 marches. So with that being said, what it does is that if you pull Ragnar and you pull Philip with him, you're bringing Guan off the bench. You're getting Guan back in the mix. Guan CPO still has the good synergies. It's just not as near as strong as it used to be, but that is still a good third march for your infantry. And of course, Wallace, Luce, and Zhuge Herman. So that gives you kind of a good idea there. All right. Now we're going to go 3 infantry, 2 cavalry, 1 archer. Okay. So the 2 cavalry stick the same. Huo Arthur, Joan with Belly, and then I'm going to run Luce with Alex. That's another combination you could run. Then you can run Ragnar with CPO, and then you can run Philip with Wallace. Now you can run Wallace primary or Philip primary. Again, it doesn't matter either way. If you have the infantry gear that's critted for infantry, you run Wallace primary. If you have the leadership gear, then you can run Philip with Wallace. Philip Wallace and Wallace Philip is sneaky good, y'all. It does a lot of single target damage, does a lot of buffing, okay? You're not going to see like the crazy 800, 900% trades as much as you see on some of the AoE stuff, but what it does for your other marches, and you got to remember, Wallace does some cool little shielding and march speed mitigation when it comes to your marches getting out of trouble. Wallace brings that aspect to it. And then, of course, the Zhuge Herman is the stat stick there. So from there, we're going to go to 6 marches. This is the first option of having 3 archers. Okay. Now you can see we're bringing Shajar out onto the field. So this is a situation where we're going to keep Philip as an archer commander. We're going to run the 2 cavalry pairings that we have. We run Wallace with Luce. I think if you had to pick kind of a Wallace Luce, or even in this situation with 1 infantry, Ragnar Luce is probably really, really good there too. But then this gives you kind of a 3 archer setup with Shajar as a primary. I like her as a damage dealer. I do not like her as a healer. And so Shajar primary with Ash, you run Zhuge with Philip, and then you can bring YSG with Herman. Now, people saw the YSG Herman earlier and some of the other stuff, other combinations. Herman gives YSG the march speed he needs. Okay, Herman YSG is a relatively a glass cannon, but it is so effective. And so, with that being said, it is really, really good. Okay, and so we'll go on to the next one here. This is a 1 cavalry, 2 infantry, 3 archer setup. This is another option for you. And you've got Huo with Arthur. Then you have Ragnar, Skippy. You have Wallace and Luce. And then you're going to run, maybe you don't have Shajar. This is another option you could do with Ash Nebu. Ash Nebu is a really good commander. Basically, Ash and Nebu are kind of the same commander. Ash is just a little bit more powerful. You got really good march speed. It has some prickliness to it. It definitely has a little tankiness to it. And then you keep Philip with Zhuge, and then you run the Herman with YSG. So that's another option if you're kind of a 1-2-3 situation with 1 cavalry, 2 infantry, and 3 archers. Okay, and so that's kind of wraps up our 6 march setup, and now we're going to get into our 7 march setup. This is where it gets a little bit wild, y'all, like crazy. Okay, so when you look at the 7 march setup, all right, here's your option 1. 3 cavs, 2 infantry, 2 archers. Okay, that's kind of the meta right now because we have so many good cavalry commanders and we do so many good things. This is what I would literally run in KVK with my main. All right, this is what I absolutely love. I've got all these commanders. I got all these marches. This is kind of the meta of the meta, and I have great Delta formation stuff for Arthur. So I want to run the Arthur with Philip, and then I want to run Huo Joan, and then Nevsky Belly. That's what I want to run for my 3 calves. The 2 infantry, you just take the 2 strongest pairs that you've got. One is wedge formation skill damage. The other one is arch formation with smite, and that's what I really, really like. And then my archers, I like obviously running Zuge with Ash, and then bringing YSG with Herman. You can set this up differently if you want to. You can run Ash with you can run Shajar with Ash. You can, that way you run Zuge and Herman. You can run Ash with Nebu if you don't have Shajar and you've maybe swapped your YSG, and then you can run Zuge with Herman. So there's a bunch of different stuff you can do on the archers. This just gives you what I would probably run if I ran this setup, okay? If I ran a 3-2-2 situation and I want to bring in Ash, okay, and then I wanted to maybe move my Philip to infantry, I could do that, and I could run it with Huo and Arthur back in action, making Arthur a skill damage commander, and then I could run it with Joan, Belly, I love that, and then Nevsky William, I love that. So Ragnar with Philip, absolutely love it, keeping Wallace on the field with Luce, and then I run Zuge Herman and Shajar Ash. So I've got some different mix and matches you can do, but this gives you kind of an idea, and you can even mix these if you want. You know, you can go to the previous one on the first option for the 3-2-2 setup, and you could have YSG, but then at the same time you could change out your archers on the next setup with everything else. So there's all kinds of different ways that you could do this, and that's my second option for a 3-2-2 format. Okay, now on a 3-2-2 format, I'm going to go with a third option. All right, this is a Huo with Arthur. This is a Joan with Belly. This is a Nevsky William. That's the three I love to run. And then I run the two really, really strong infantry marches, and I move my Philip over to archers. I run him behind Zuge, run Ash Herman. Again, on the archers, you can switch this. You can run Ash Philip and then Zuge Herman. You can do it however you want, but this is kind of, you know, when you put Philip with archers and you're running two different pairings for archers, you can get YSG, you can get Shajar, you can get Nebu off the field, and you can run those four. These four archer commanders right here that you're seeing, Zuge, Philip, Ash, and Herman, they're your four best archer commanders, straight up. Okay, I know Philip is a leadership commander, but he is the fourth best, maybe arguably the third best archer commander if he's just an archer commander. So that's how I like to set that up, okay? So option one here, we're going to go with a 2-3-2 format. This is a cavalry, 3 infantry, 2 archers. And we bring Guan off the bench, okay? So this sets it up with a Huo Arthur, a Joan with Belly. We're going to bring Guan off the bench because we want to put Ragnar with Philip, and we can run Guan CPO, William Wallace with Luce, Ragnar Philip, and then now you get back into the 2 archer marches without Philip, where you're going to bring Shajar, or you can mix and match and do Herman with YSG or Ash with Nebu. You can do however you want to do with your archers, and you're going to be just fine, absolutely fine. Here's another 2-3-2 setup, okay? Now I want to bring bring Alex on the field, all right, with your infantry. So same setup for the Cavs. Now I bring Luce with Alex, okay? Now Luce with Alex, and then Ragnar Scipio, and then the Philip with Wallace, okay? But this is switched around. You can do Wallace with Philip, just depending on how your gear goes. Just remember, again, I will repeat this. Anytime you see Philip in a pairing here, he can run behind the commander, or if he has leadership gear, he can run in front of the commander. It doesn't matter. You can run it either way. And so Ragnar with CPO is what I like, but this allows you to get Alex on the field. Now, if you want to talk about the best setup to either buff or debuff, this is the best setup because Alex still has one of the best debuffs in the game. It's an all damage debuff he does on multiple targets. It's great for your murder ball. Plus, then you have Philip doing the buffing for 5 of your marches as well. So that is a really good setup for a 3 infantry, 2 Cavs, 2 archer setup. Okay, and so we'll go to the next one. This gives you a third option. Okay, if you don't have Philip for whatever reason, all right, or if you want to put Philip over with the archers, you can run this. And let's say you don't necessarily have, you want to run 3 infantry marches and you don't have Philip. This is a way you can do it as well. You can run Luce Alex, you can run Gorgo Wallace, and then you can run CPO behind Ragnar. So Gorgo is still okay. You know, it's not crazy. This is option 3. It's not crazy meta, but Gorgo still provides a really, really good field march with Wallace behind her. And a lot of people say, well, maybe you do Wallace primary because of the smite tree. Don't do that. You run Gorgo primary because of her rage requirement is only 900. She fires off faster. She, for whatever reason, just does better as a primary in that setting. And then if you're just running 4 archer commanders without Philip, you guys know you can mix and match and do this however you want. You can bring in YSG, you can bring in Nebu, all that stuff. Okay. So and then, now that we move into a more of a 2-2-3 setup, this is what you're gonna want to run. This is with 3 archers. Okay, you're running a 2 cavalry, 2 infantry, 3 archers. You have to have Philip over here with the archers. You just absolutely have to, which is great. You could run Philip with archers. He's amazing to do that with, like we've talked about before. So you have the 2 best cavalry commanders or cavalry pairings I think you can have. You have the 2 best infantry pairings I think you can have, and you run Philip behind Zuge. Then you bring Shajar in, and you can run Ash behind Shajar, and then Herman with YSG. You can easily put Nebu in here as well, but that is just how I would run that with a 2-2-3 archer situation. 3 archers, this is how I would run that in that regard, okay? Now we go on to the next one. You're going to keep Philip over here, but now let's say you don't have Shajar. This is how I would run it. I would run it with Ash Nebu. Okay, we talked about that. They bring a lot of the same AoE effects, and they do really good together. They're fast. It does really well. And then you run that Herman YSG again. Listen, Herman YSG cannot be expressed enough how much damage that thing does. Okay, Herman YSG is really, really good. Herman provides the march speed and a little bit of tankiness. YSG obviously is an amplifier and does a lot of damage, and that's how you can run the 2-2-3 format in that regard. Okay, so that's kind of your overall, 3-2-2, 2-3-2, and 2-2-3 setups for your 7 March Murder Ball. So let's get into some other aspects of this, okay? This is what's really fun and interesting. We're going to bring on a 2-2-2-1 setup now with a Siege March, okay? So I go stick with the same cavalry, same infantry. Now I'm going to run what I feel are the 2 best archer marches you can run. Now you can flip those around a little bit and run Ash and Philip and run Zuge Herman, however you want to do it. Those are the 4 best archer commanders. And then Gajamada and Cordoba. Those are the 2 best siege commanders. Margaret is great. You have some of the other ones. John is now really, really good as a new one that you can get through MGE. But this is what the meta of the meta siege commander or siege players run. Fluffy runs this. You'll see massive players in 365 or 60 GT or 2377. They all like to bring a Gajamada with Cordoba. So that kind of gives you that aspect of a 7 March Murder Ball, and you want to bring 1 Siege March, okay? And then last but not least, because I'm a cavalry guy, okay, we're going to talk about this. We're going to say a 7 March setup with 4 cavalry, because for whatever reason, I rarely see players running 4 archers. I rarely see them running 4 infantry, unless you're Sasuke or something. You see more players trying to run 4 cavalry for whatever reason. I don't know. So if you ever see a 4 troop type situation, 9 out of 10 times it's cavalry, okay? So here's what I would run. You got to pull Philip over there. Okay, then you've got to run Arthur Phillip for that niche combo situation. You run Joan with Belly, love that. You bring Huo and run it with William, I love that. And then it allows you to put Nevsky behind XY. Yes, you run 4 cavalries, you're bringing XY off the bench. Some people would rather say Justinian, maybe Justinian, but he just doesn't do enough in the field. He's great for swarming stuff, and he's a rally commander. That's what he does. XY with Nevsky is kind of you have to run Nevsky with XY because Nevsky gives enough tankiness, and when you're being focused, he gives proc health. So that's the only way I've ever been able to run XY. I've never been able to run XY with William. It just gets melted. I've never been able to run XY with anybody else except Nevsky, where it actually does okay. That's how I would run 4 cavalries. And then the 2 infantry marches, of course, are the 2 best, and then Zuge Herman. Okay, again, this isn't the end all be all. This is what's so amazing about this game. This game, and the developers have really kind of developed it and changed it to where now with Philip, you can use him anywhere. You can use him as any different troop type you want, okay? And with all the different commanders using the museum buff for Alex, you can easily run Alex and skip Wallace, okay? And that's just fine. When you talk about some of the other commanders that you have, Shajar is okay, but she's kind of, for the high level that Zuge and Herman are, Shajar is just kind of meh. Okay, and now with Arthur, now you can run Arthur as two different types of commanders. You could run him as a skill damage commander as a secondary, or a combo commander as a primary. Okay, you can put Philip behind him in that regard. You can even put Attila behind him if you want to run him as a combo commander. So there, basically what I'm saying is there's no end all be all. Anybody that's trying to tell you that there's a best 7 March lineup or a best 5 or best 6 is completely full of it, because it's completely subjective. It's subjective to the kind of gear you have. It's subjective to the kind of armaments you have. It's subjective to everything that you have in this game. And so that's the beauty of it, is that I'm just going to tell you what I'm thinking when I'm saying here's a 5 March different combinations, 6 March different combinations, 7 March different combinations. I'm going to even include Siege, and I'm even going to include a 4 Cav setup in a 7 March situation. That's what I like to do, because there is no wrong answer, and that's the beauty of this. So if you love the stream, if you love the channel, if you love the video, be sure to throw a thumbs up, support us. It's been so great. The community's been awesome. My Discord link is in the description. Join the Discord. We're having a lot of fun with all these different conversations and how we're testing different things. So our Discord is a lot of fun, a great community, and is a very positive community where we invite everybody, new players, old players, doesn't matter. There is no stupid question in my Discord. And so with that being said, we hope this serves you as a little bit of application, and hopefully you can take a little bit from it, compare it, do different things. I'll have the guides up in my Discord as well. And with that being said, we'll see you, broskies.